Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Cedar Lane Unitan Universalist Church. I'm Abhi Janamanchi. My pronouns are he, him, one of the ministers serving this religious community. If you're new with us this morning, please let us know in the live chat. And if you feel comfortable, fill out the newcomer form that's included in the chat. Whether you're joining us today for the first time or you've been with us for a lifetime, we welcome you. Whoever you are, whomever you love, we welcome you. Wherever you're joining us from and however you arrived at our worship time together, we welcome you. Whatever your beliefs, gender identity or expression, immigration status, or political views, we welcome you. Thank you for taking a chance and taking the time to worship with us today. If you've been attending for a while and are interested in being a member of this religious community, please reach out to our membership coordinator, Nicole Kazi. Our pastoral visitors are an extension of our ministry team, and they are available this morning in the chat to support you. Now, I have a few announcements. There is still time to fill out the music director search survey to gather information about our vision and hopes and aspirations for the music program. The deadline is Sunday, February 28th, and the survey link is included in the chat and also in the e-news. It only takes about 10 minutes to complete the survey. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact Linda Jean Essie, chair of our music search team. Linda's email is included in the chat. And next Sunday, February 28th at 3 p.m., the three Potomac Partnership congregations are joining forces for one big launch of our annual giving campaigns called Meeting the Moment. The campaign kickoff concert will feature UU musicians Peter Mayer, Emma's Revolution, and Leah Morris. It is an exciting concert and opportunity for all three congregations to come together. The link for the concert is included in the chat and will also be in next week's e-news. We look forward to seeing you all there next Sunday at 3 p.m. And on Wednesday, March 3rd, we are deeply honored and excited to welcome acclaimed civil rights activist, filmmaker, author, and speaker Valerie Kaur as our 2021 Kiplinger Lecturer on Ethics. Valerie is a seasoned civil rights activist and celebrated prophetic voice at the forefront of progressive change. She burst into American consciousness in the wake of the 2016 election when her watch night service address went viral with 30+ million views worldwide. Her question, "Is this the darkness of the tomb or the darkness of the womb?" reframed the political moment and became a mantra for people fighting for change. Valerie now leads the Revolutionary Love Project to reclaim love as a force for justice in America. Please sign up for this not-to-be-missed event on March 3rd. And last but not least, please register to attend our all-church annual auction coming this spring from April 16th through May 2nd online. Donations are needed now and will be received until March 15th. The auction team is especially looking for art, antiques, jewelry, vacation homes, lunches and dinners in your home or at restaurants. The bidding will begin on April 16th. When you register, you will receive a Justice Mask. We look forward to seeing you at the auction. Please watch our e-news for auction information. Let us center ourselves, inviting our mind, body, and spirit into this space made sacred by our presence and the presence of the holy that transcends time and space, for a time of reflection and remembrance, of reckoning and repair, restoration and renewal. Let us be mindful of the hallowed ground where our beloved church is situated. Let us be mindful of the Piscataway, Nacotchtank, and Acostia people who have lived on these lands for 1,000 years and more. Let us remember those who were enslaved and worked this land without choice or reward. Let us remember all who have gone before, whose vision and labor help create and sustain this, our religious community. In this spirit, we gather. In this spirit, we begin. Let us now greet and welcome each other in the chat.
My brothers and sisters who walk this land from the beginning, my brothers and sisters from which this land was taken. Those who talked and walked and lived and served the land long before us truly know the meaning of hallowed ground. We need to be like children and bend our ear towards the earth so that we can hear and feel the energy of those who walk this land long before us, those who knew how to be at oneness with the soil, with the water, with the sky. They who first honored this place that we call home now. They, the teachers of the way, may we bow down to their wisdom and know that is they and they alone who truly understand the meaning of this hallowed ground. My brothers and sisters, First Nation, my brothers and sisters, it is you from which we must learn. It is you whom we must honor. It is you who we must make amends, not in word, but in action, so that we might earn the the privilege to utter the words, this our hallowed ground. The divine whisper of Mother, Father, Creator Almighty, guides the whisper of this quiet calling. Brother, sister, First Nation, this your hallowed ground.
The wind brings your names. We will never dissever your name nor your shadows beneath each branch and tree. The truth comes in on the wind, is carried by water. There is such a thing as the truth. Tell us how you got over. Say, soul, I look back in wonder. Your names were never lost, each name a holy word. The rocks cry out, call out each name to sanctify this place. Sounds in human voices, silver or soil, a moan, a sorrow, song, a keen, a cackle, harmony, a hymnal handbook chart, a sacred text, a stomp, an exhortation. Ancestors, you will find us still in cages, despised and disciplined. You will find us still misnamed. Here you will find us despite. We will not find us extinct. You will find us here, memoried and storied. You will find us here mighty. You will find us here divine. You will find us where you left us, but not as you left us. Here you endure and are luminous. You are not lost to us. The wind carries sorrows, sighs, and shouts. The wind brings everything. Nothing is lost. Good morning. I'm Lesley Vossen, the worship associate for today's service. I'm lighting my chalice in Silver Spring, Maryland. As I read our chalice lighting words, I invite you to share in the chat where you are lighting your chalice. We light our flaming chalice as a beloved people united in love and thirsting for restorative justice. May it spark in us a spirit of humility. May it ignite in us radical love that transforms our energy into purposeful action. This is a chalice of audacious hope. This chalice shines a light on our shared past, signaling our intention to listen deeply, reflect wisely, and move boldly toward our highest ideals.
Good morning, Cedar Lane. It's nice to be with you this morning. I'm Ai-Ling Louie, here to tell you why I agreed to be one of the steering group of the 8th Principal Task Force. I have been a UU for 35 years. I came to this denomination because my 5-year-old daughter was being told she was going to hell. But I stayed all these years, not for my children, but for myself. You see, I loved being a part of the community of liberal thinkers and socially responsible doers. As a Chinese American, it's hard to fit in anywhere. As with Cedar Lane on Sunday mornings, I'm usually the only Asian American face in the crowd. I would like to say I felt welcomed and accepted right away at Cedar Lane, but that was not my experience. Oh, people said, "Welcome to our congregation," but actions speak louder than words. While sitting at a table during an event, the other members of my table turned their backs to me and spoke to their friends. I was with a black woman, another newcomer at Cedar Lane Cabaret, and a woman in front of us kept turning around and shushing us. My companion got up, left, and never came back. I also was with a friend who happened to be black at one coffee hour. Someone came up and said, "Archine, I want to—" "I'm not Archine," my companion said. "Oh, whatever, I just wanted to say." My companion and I shouldn't have let that woman walk away without knowing she had hurt us by mistaking one black person for another, and then making light of it. But we weren't quick enough, and we were left with a sour taste in our mouths and a feeling of not being appreciated as individuals. But I stuck with it, and eventually Tracy asked me to be on her committee. Len invited me to be in sharing group. Michael and Pat invited me over to their house for a holiday party. I began to make friends and feel at home. I found that Cedar Lane was a place that was open to thinking about race relations. I was a member of Mosaic Makers and Together, where we tried to foster and plan for a multicultural congregation where everyone was welcome, but we kept hitting snags. There was this unspoken bias toward Eurocentric white way of doing things. Recently, our President Biden openly recognized this as systemic racism and said our country was founded on it, and we have been living it our whole lives. I and many Americans agree with him. So, what do we do about it? I think we have to face our problems head on, acknowledge that we have to change our ways, and bring us all together as equals. That is what the 8th principle does. It says we will take actions that accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions in ourselves and in our institutions. I belong to a Cedar Lane group that is the joy of my online life. It's called Beloved Multicultural Conversations. It is the beloved community of many races and cultures that Martin Luther King and the 8th principle talk about. When we Zoom, we meet and value each other for the content of our characters, each one contributing something uniquely wonderful to the deep talk about the life we are trying to live as whole people, affirming and supporting and truly listening to each other. It's amazing the way beloved multicultural conversations makes us way better than we are as individuals. And it's what I want for all of my church, my Cedar Lane. That is why I'm working with Allison Moses and Eduardo Hernandez as a steering group of the 8th Principle Task Force. We are working to get the 8th Principle accepted by the congregational vote in June, and then we can get started on the road towards striving to make us a truly beloved community with the 8th Principle serving as a guide. I invite you to join us on Thursday evening, February 25th at 7 o'clock for a Zoom salon to talk about the 8th Principle. The invitation is in the e-news and in the website, in the calendar, and in the chat. Hope to see you there. Bye.
There's a river flowing in my soul. There's a river flowing in my soul, and it's telling me that I'm somebody. There's a river flowing in my soul. There's a river flowing in my heart. There's a river flowing in my heart, and it's telling me that I'm somebody. There's a river flowing in my heart. There's a river flowing in my mind. There's a river flowing in my mind, and it's telling me that I'm somebody. There's a river flowing in my mind.
Hi, everyone. I'm going to read to you today from this story, Moses, when Harriet Tubman led her people to freedom. In order to understand the story, it's helpful to know who Moses was. Moses was a great Jewish leader and prophet, or a teller of sacred truths. In the time of Moses, thousands and thousands of years ago, the Jewish people were enslaved by the ancient Egyptians. Moses led his people through great danger to freedom. And just a few hundred years ago, Harriet Tubman was enslaved in Maryland by white people. She also led her people through great danger to freedom. Both Moses and Harriet Tubman were called by their faith to make great sacrifices and fight oppression. I wonder what your faith calls you to do. On a summer night, Harriet gazes at the sky and talks with God. I am your child, Lord, yet Master owns me, drives me like a mule. Now he means to sell me south in chains to work cotton, rice, indigo, or sugar cane, never to see my family again. God speaks in the whippoorwill song.
I set North Star in the heavens, and I mean for you to be free.
Harriet sees the star twinkling. My mind is made up. Tomorrow I flee. God wraps her in the blanket of night, and she returns to the cabin, sleeps beside her husband one last time. The next day, Harriet tells not a soul her plan. She grips the axe to chop wood, breathes deeply, and murmurs, Lord, I'm going to need to hold steady on to you. And God whispers back in the breeze,
I'm going to see you through, child.
At dusk, Harriet chants, when that old chariot comes, I'm gonna leave you. She hopes her loved ones hear her song and know its meaning. It means farewell. While the plantation sleeps, Harriet prays, Lord, send me a sign. An owl screeches.
The hour has come.
Running through the swamp, she hears frogs croaking and her own heart pounding. Lord, I can't make it alone. The moon's reflection on the creek She sees God's face.
Harriet, you dreamed that saints saved you, but mortals will give you refuge.
The woman in the wagon who always spoke kindly to me,
Yes, Harriet.
I must go to her. The woman points Harriet to safe havens, hiding places for runaways, and Harriet steals away into the darkness. She creeps through the woods, heart flutters, hush, hoofbeats. Please, Lord, don't let them catch me and take me back to face Master's whip. Don't let my journey end here. In the underbrush, Harriet sinks into a deep sleep. God cradles her. When she wakes, men on horseback have passed and day breaks. Thank you, Lord, for watching over me. In a clearing, the safe haven, Harriet knows that most strangers would turn her in, not help her, but the farmer's wife feeds Harriet, then tells her to sweep the yard. I don't know who to trust, Lord.
Search for my face in theirs and for my hands in their work. What have you in your hands?
In a dust cloud, she sees the broom become a staff, then a rifle. Harriet startles but holds on.
I will arm you against your enemies, but you will not harm a soul, and no harm will come to you.
The dust settles as she stops sweeping, and all is as it was. At nightfall, Harriet climbs into a wagon, and the farmer covers her with blankets. As the wagon wobbles along, Harriet worries that it is heading to jail. Should I leap, Lord?
Trust me to protect you, child.
A heart song lulls her to sleep. The wagon stops at dawn. Harriet walks till her legs ache. Then she leans against a tree. Lord, I miss my folks.
Harriet, your father taught you to read the stars, predict the weather, gather wild berries, and make cures from roots. Use his lessons to be free. You will meet again.
A mosquito buzzes in Harriet's ear. She rises and moves on. A boatman rows her upriver. Back on shore, hounds snarl, sniff for Harriet's trail. She races as fast as she can. Lord, I can't outrun them. God speaks through the babbling brook.
Shed your shoes. Wade in the water to trick the dog.
Upstream, the barking ceases and fear washes away. Thank you, Lord. Harriet's feet bleed and her gut churns. Under the stars, she draws near God. Lord, don't let nobody turn me round. I'd rather die than be a slave.
Harriet, keep going. You have already glimpsed the future.
She recalls dreams where she flew like a bird, sunk and was lifted by ladies in white who pulled her north.
Fly, Harriet. Faith has wings.
Up ahead, she hears word that patrollers are nabbing runaways and crouches for days in a potato hole. Dreams she is buried alive. Have you deserted me, Lord?
Harriet, when you were a girl, you hid in a pig pen to shun the whip. You fought hogs for apples.
An old prayer comes back to her. Lord, make me strong, help me fight. After 7 days, Harriet rises from the hole like a sapling, reaches for the sun as if to touch God's hand. By moonlight, she marches on, making her way mile after rugged mile, hiding in haystacks, attics, and barns, holding God's hand all the while. She often wearies. How far, Lord?
As far as you can walk with me, my child, and I can carry you.
When Harriet is about to drop, a couple in a wagon rides by. They say slavery is a sin, and they take her on the last leg of her journey.
Not far now, child. Not far now.
In the promised land, Philadelphia, the sun shines gold in the trees, and Harriet feels light as a cloud. She studies herself from head to toe to see if she has wings. Is this heaven, Lord?
Not heaven, Harriet. Free soul.
But freedom brings new woes. Lord, I am a stranger here. All my kin are down south.
Would you like to see them?
As Harriet dusts her family's face appear in the wood grain, she wipes tears from the table. I would make a home for them here. I would give them my own life to free them.
Then go back for them, daughter, but first go to my house to prepare for the journey.
And Harriet goes to church, finds not just holy ground, but a stopping place, a station along the Underground Railroad that slaves travel to freedom. Harriet hands out shirts and shoes, serves butter beans and biscuits to newly arrived runaways, while agents who plot escape paths pass on secret routes that she learns by heart. Finally, a conductor, a guide, she turns to God. I am ready, Lord. Lead me.
Harriet, I will make a way for you.
Risking her own life, Harriet returns to the dreaded South and rescues her family. But she dreams of slaves still in the yoke. She hears their groans, sees their tears, tosses and turns in her sleep. Then God opens her eyes.
Harriet, be the Moses of your people.
But I am a lowly woman, Lord.
Use your gifts to break the chains.
I will do as you say, Lord. I will show others the way to freedom that you have shown me.
Save all you can, daughter.
And Harriet heeds God's call, goes south again and again, keeps her bands of runaways moving, comes storm and rough country, clear to Canada, Canaan land. And when free souls sing her praises, she gives glory where it is due. It wasn't me, it was the Lord. I always trust him to lead me, and he always does.
Well done, Moses, well done.
Wade in the water, wade in the water, children, wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. Wade in the water, wade in the water, children, wade in the water. must be the children that are coming through. God's gonna trouble the water. Oh, wait in the water, wait in the water, children, wait in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. Wade in the water. Wade in the water, children. Wade in the water. God's gonna trouble. God's gonna trouble. God's gonna trouble. Sometimes God's gonna trouble the water, but wade, wade, oh, wade in the water, wade in the water, children, wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. God's gonna trouble the water. God's gonna trouble the water.
Thank you so much, Fred. What a gift it is to have Fred's soul-filling voice with us in services and twice a month at our Quiet Calling services. And as I think about these troubled waters that we must wade in together, what a gift it is to also hear Fred's soul-filling voice, serving as a reminder that we do not wade through these waters alone. Queridísima Diosa, Santo, permítanos sentir su presencia. Escúchenme, amados antepasados, sangre de mi sangre, hueso de mis huesos, fuerza de mi fuerza. Estás presente. Dearest Goddess, Holy One, let us feel your presence. Hear me, beloved ancestors, blood of my blood, bone of my bone, strength of my strength. You are present. Present in this moment, whether we know the strength, the suffering, and the harm that has been done to our ancestors, or that they have done or not. It is alive in us, in our bones, in our blood, in our flesh, in the systems with which we participate in this moment in time. And we are wading in these troubled waters, the waters that began to run before we were. And yet we are responsible in this time with those beside us, to those who are before us. We are responsible for grid failures and greed in Texas, for the lives that have been lost to COVID, lives primarily people of color, people from the Black, Indigenous, people of color communities. As we settle and move through these waters, we cannot rest. We must Hear the voices calling us for restoration and repair, and wade deeper and deeper, committed to crossing to save not just ourselves, but those beside us and those who will come after us. Beloved Goddess, Holy One of many names, give us the strength and the courage to listen to those who are oppressed, to hear all the stories, and then wade deeper, go forward, and act for justice. May it be so. Amen. Now let us enter silence together. And if you are mourning a loss or marking the anniversary of a loss, please know that you are invited to share your loved one's name in the chat or in the comments in mourning and in memory, so that we may bear witness. Amen. Every Sunday during worship, we take up an offering. It reminds us that from time to time, we must turn our attention, even if it's just once a week, to the knowing that our giving of time, of talent, and treasure is as symbolic as it is practical. We know that it's through financial giving that budgets are built, that ministries are funded, that worship and religious education, pastoral care, and social justice pay for staff and religious leaders, and even the care and beauty of building and grounds rise up from these gifts. We also pass the plate during our worship service to make a community expression of gratitude for the blessing of abundance, to visibly bring in the harvest at this most cherished hour of the week. Our offering says that the act of giving is as essential to our spiritual well-being as anything else we do on Sunday mornings. We're grateful for the incredible generosity of our members, friends, and fans all over the world throughout this time in support of our mission and ministry and the many community organizations that we partner with in service of our mission. This week, we're giving to support AIM, Action in Montgomery. Now, Cedar Lane is a founding member of Action in Montgomery. For decades, we've embraced our social justice and equity work with AIM as one of our spiritual practices as we strive to build a more just world. We recognize that moving from a place of belief and commitment to action requires long-term relationship building, an accountable relationship building with those who are most impacted by systems of oppression. Over the years, Cedar Lane has joined with the other 31 AIM institutions to do the critical work of holding elected officials accountable to the community by lifting up awareness, mobilizing public opinion, and advocating for issues that affect Montgomery County, Maryland, the county in which Cedar Lane is situated. Our most recent success was reinstating the timeline for the reconstruction of the South Lake Elementary School. Current campaigns include equity in education, affordable housing, public health, tenant organizing, and police reform. AIM's existence, like Cedar Lane's, depends on the financial support of members. We hope you'll give from a space in your heart that yearns for justice. And there are many ways to give at Cedar Lane, by electronic means like text, online giving, PayPal, QR code, or you can mail a check to the church. I'm going to thank you for your generosity. Today's offering will now be gratefully received.
What does the Lord require of thee? What does the Lord require of thee? But to do justly, love, mercy, walk humbly with God. Woe unto thee, who issue oppressive decree. They should do justly, love, mercy, walk humbly with God. What does the Lord require of thee? What does the Lord require of thee? But to do justly, love, mercy,
In the words of the Reverend Lynn Unger, through the work of our hands and the work of our lives, our love is made real. May we be grateful for all the ways in which we are called to make love real at Cedar Lane. Reparations is one of those ideas that ignites strong emotions in most people. Often mischaracterized and largely misunderstood, it infuriates and mystifies many who believe that slavery ended in 1865 and therefore reparations should not be discussed now. And even those who are in favor of the idea tend to get stuck on the how. How would it practically work? How do we trace lineage? Are we talking about only Black people or Indigenous people and other people of color as well? Would everyone classified as Black receive payments from the government? Would Oprah, Beyonce, and LeBron James receive payments? Would white people be taxed more to generate funds for reparations? And so on and so forth. Confronted with these kinds of questions, people tend to dismiss the idea as impractical and leave current systems and policies tragically in place. Now, while it may seem like discussions of reparations are relatively new or seen as idealistic debates, it should be noted that reparations have been made before in American history. In fact, huge sums of reparations, billions of dollars, have been paid out, just the wrong way, to enslavers and their descendants. In the 19th century, for example, the policy of paying reparations to former enslavers was standard practice. Reparations to enslavers in states such as Connecticut, Rhode Island, New York, and New Jersey were paid in the form of rights to the ongoing involuntary labor of enslaved Black children for up to 28 years, as well as guaranteed pensions. President Lincoln's Emancipation Bill of 1862 provided payment to enslavers up to $300 for each enslaved person who was freed. And under the Homestead Act of 1862, 1.6 million white families and fewer than 6,000 Black families were given those 160-acre land grants in the western and southern United States. Now, reparations for enslavers worked not only through law, but also through custom. Long before Jim Crow, the everyday codes of white supremacy kept freed Black people in the condition of an undercaste in the US North and the South, as writer Isabel Wilkerson has shown in her recent book, Caste: The Origins of Our Discontents. But the idea of giving Black people reparations for slavery dates back to right after the end of the Civil War. Think General Sherman's 40 acres and a mule. And for more than a century, it was mostly an idea debated outside the mainstream of American political thought. That changed when writer Ta-Nehisi Coates published his 2014 piece in The Atlantic, The Case for Reparations. And in the years since, political leaders, institutions, faith communities, and members of the public have begun to take the issue more seriously. Last Wednesday, the House Judiciary Subcommittee on the Constitution, Civil Rights, and Civil Liberties held a virtual hearing to discuss a bill first introduced by the late Representative John Conyers of Michigan in 1989, H.R. 40, which seeks to create a commission to study and develop reparation proposals. Now, some cities like Evanston, Illinois, states like California, and religious denominations like the Episcopal Diocese of Maryland have already taken strides toward beginning the process of reparations. And for 2 decades now, the UUA, along with All Souls Unitarian and Church of the Restoration UU in Tulsa, Oklahoma, has been calling for reparations for the survivors and the community of Greenwood, Tulsa, for the 1921 race massacre, which on May 31, 1921, thousands of white Tulsans, 2,000 of whom were deputized by the police, stormed the Greenwood neighborhood, a community known as Black Wall Street. In one day and night, the nation's most prosperous Black community was reduced to rubble. Hundreds were killed, and more than 10,000 Black Tulsans were left injured, homeless, and destitute. No one was even held accountable, and no reparations have been paid to date to Black survivors of the massacre and descendants of victims. Now, just to give you a little bit of a historical context and connection, one of the co-founders of All Souls Church, which was founded the same year of the massacre in 1921, was Richard Lloyd Jones, son of prominent Unitarian minister Jenkins Lloyd Jones. Now, Jones, as owner and co-editor of the Tulsa Tribune, played a prominent role in watering the seeds of white supremacy that fomented the race massacre. Recognizing this sordid connection, the church has been engaged in the work of reparations, and the call for reparations continues in the centennial year of the massacre and the centennial year of the church, as All Souls continues to work for reconciliation, reparations, and healing. So, reparations matter. And we need to find ways to engage with the idea of reparations. Because without talking about reparations, we cannot get real about where we have been and where we must go. But what are reparations? The National Coalition of Blacks for Reparations in America defines reparations as, and I quote, a process of repairing, healing, and restoring a people injured because of their group identity and in violation of their fundamental human rights by governments, corporations, institutions, and families. Those groups that have been injured have the right to obtain from the government, corporation, institution, or family responsible for the injuries that which they need to repair and heal themselves. In addition to being a demand for justice, it is a principle of international human rights law, end of quote. Now, the concept of reparations as doing repair work has biblical origins. In the Hebrew Bible, the community of Israel recognized the need to have a periodic time of repairing the social fabric. One form of reparations was the Jubilee year, Leviticus 25, 1-10, when prisoners were freed and debts forgiven. Another was the order to compensate Hebrew slaves when they were released, Deuteronomy 15, 12-18. They were not to be sent away empty-handed. Now, this actually provides a spiritual framework to discuss reparations and right of repair, right of return for the Palestinian people. But that's another service and another reflection. So reparations, as defined by international human rights law, includes the following forms: restitution, compensation, rehabilitation, satisfaction, and guarantees of non-repetition. Restoration means repair to the material reality that systemic racism has been perpetuated. In June 2020, Pulitzer Prize-winning reporter Nicole Hannah-Jones published a story in the New York Times Magazine titled, "What is Owed?" making the case for financial reparations, saying most notably that it is wealth and not income that is a means to security in America, but wealth is not something people create solely by themselves. It is accumulated across generations. Jones traces the wealth gap to slavery and the fact that enslaved people were not allowed to own property. She notes that the legalized segregation and racial terrorism that followed slavery exacerbated the problem and prevented generation after generation of Black Americans from acquiring the type of wealth or foothold in the economy that allows you to live a life that is much more typical of white Americans, end of quote. She goes on to say that American society has systematically robbed Black people of this possibility, and the racial wealth gap is about the same today as it was in the 1950s. She says that reparations are the only means through which to compensate for the structures of inequality that have made it all but impossible for Black Americans to achieve anything like the financial security that white Americans take for granted. She writes, reparations to me is about repair. In the context specifically of Black Americans, reparations has to do with 250 years of chattel slavery, followed by another 100 years of legalized segregation or apartheid and racial terrorism, and how that impacted the economic well-being of Black Americans. But reparations, as the work of repair, is more than a financial transaction. Professor Charles Henry, in his 2007 book, Long Overdue, The Politics of Racial Reparations, writes that reparations are intimately linked to restorative justice. And he describes a process where there is the need to recognize and acknowledge a wrong done, then to listen to voices expressing pain and anger and suffering, to provide some sort of redress, either restitution or atonement, and finally to find a sense of closure, a mutual kind of reconciliation that all parties can feel, and hopefully the prevention of any future injustice. Ultimately, Dr. Henry says, reparations can lead to rebuilding of community in such a way that the desire for vengeance and retribution is diminished and fear can be replaced by hope for a more just, equitable, and loving community, one where people know they belong, the beloved community. Ta-Nehisi Coates makes a similar point in his essay, Reparations, he writes, by which I mean the full acceptance of our collective biography and its consequences is the price we must pay to see ourselves squarely. What is needed is an airing of family secrets, a settling with old ghosts. What is needed is a healing of the American psyche and the banishment of white guilt. What I am talking about is more than recompense for past injustices, more than a handout, a payoff, hush money, or a reluctant bribe. What I am talking about is a national reckoning that would lead to spiritual renewal. A national reckoning that would lead to spiritual renewal. Reparations are not just about the past, but about how we reorient ourselves towards past crimes and their ongoing effects shaping our present, and how we break that cycle to envision a different future. And without talking about reparations, we cannot get real about repairing the damage we as a country have perpetrated against the Black community since the first enslaved people were forced to set foot on these shores, and against the indigenous peoples whose land was stolen and whose cultures were destroyed. And without a willingness, an intentional willingness to engage in this congregation, in this conversation, the soul repair and spiritual renewal our country so desperately needs will never happen. I say spiritual because reparations are about human dignity and inherent worth and accountability and what we owe one another. To conclude with a quote from Ta-Nehisi Coates, more important than any single check cut to any African American, the payment of reparations would represent America's maturation out of the childhood myth of its innocence into a wisdom worthy of its founders. May we be worthy of the wisdom received from our ancestors and our founders to actually be engaged in embodying the dream. May it be so.
As we travel through this journey of life, facing the challenges, most of which we, the children of creation, have created for each other, we seek to understand the mystery. We seek to find the answers. We seek to find ways. But sometimes we fail to listen to the wisdom that has been sent to us through prophets and wise voices, through great documents that guide us on the pathway of the heart, helping us to understand how to be with each other. In the great sacred writings of the Bible, the wisdom and guidance to welcome the stranger, not to turn the stranger away, not to label someone that we don't know as the other. We are guided to welcome the stranger, not reject the stranger, not distrust the stranger. In the great writings of the Quran, we're guided to understand that we were created and made into different tribes and communities so that we could get to know each other, so that we could wander and discover the reality of each other, to share our commonality and to benefit from our differences because of the things that are different about us, which we can recognize as being that which are the threads in the tapestry of the richness of the human experience. Words of wisdom and guidance written, but unfollowed. And so when we talk about what can we do to make it different, important conversations about making right the wrongs that have been heaped upon others, other sisters and brothers. When we talk about how do we compensate, how do we make restoration, reparation, what do we do? It's not always as simple or as complicated as dollars and cents. For may we be guided by the wisdom of those wise ones and words that have come before us, to recognize that with every breath that we take, we're given the opportunity to see and feel and honor each of our sisters and brothers, to be in oneness, one breath, one humanity. So along with dialogue, conversation, confrontation about paying me back, giving me my due, this my prayer, I hope will be a conversation between me and you. May we seek to be divinely committed to a reparation of the heart, to see the light of creation, the light of our Creator in the eyes of all who we meet and see, to see each human being as vital and important, a pure crystal of life, a pure treasure of humanity. So may we fill our hearts with the strains of reparations of love and kindness. May we fill our hearts with the light of forgiveness and the light of I am sorry for what I know has happened to you. And the sweat and the blood is not only yours, it's mine, my brother, it's mine, my sister too. A reparation of making it right is a reparation of the heart. Not arguing about how much, but understanding how long the suffering has been and continues to be. So start the journey through a reparation of the heart. Change, listening, knowing, doing what's right. For the journey begins with the reparation of the heart. Reparation of the heart, being differently, seeing the other as me, feeling pure humanity. Please let that be who you choose to be. Wrapped in a cloak of the heart. For the journey begins with a reparation of the heart.
We shall not be moved. We shall not be moved like a tree that's planted by the water. We shall not be moved. We shall not be moved. We shall not be moved like a tree that's planted by the water. We shall not be moved. Union is behind us. We shall not be moved. The union is behind us. We shall not be moved. Just like a tree that's planted by the water. We shall not be moved. We're fighting for our freedom. we shall not be moved like a tree that's planted by the water.